Malaysia didn't just renegotiate a trade deal with the United States, it erased it. In one decisive move, a signed agreement vanished, and suddenly, every country that trusted that deal is asking the same question. What happens when the leverage behind a deal disappears overnight? That question is about to reshape global trade, and here's why. At a recent ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia made a decision that caught Washington completely off guard. The country officially walked away from its trade agreement with the United States, and the message from Malaysia's trade minister was unmistakable. The deal is not paused. It is gone. But here's where it gets more complicated. Under the original agreement, Malaysia agreed to tariffs that were gradually reduced from extremely high levels down to 19%. In return, they opened their markets, adjusted regulations, and gave American businesses significant advantages. Then came a major legal shakeup. The decision was clear. They chose to walk. And here is where the system starts to crack. When tariffs become equal for everyone, the incentive to make concessions disappears. Think about that from another country's perspective. You signed a deal, you made concessions, you accepted obligations, and yet new investigations were launched targeting dozens of nations, including those that had already agreed to terms. If you're that country, what are you thinking right now? You're probably asking, what was the point? That's exactly why deals like this start to wobble. Over the past year, the United States had signed a wave of reciprocal trade agreements with countries across the world. These agreements followed a consistent pattern. High tariff threats were introduced first. Then negotiations offered relief. In exchange for concessions, countries opened markets, adjusted policies, and committed to large-scale purchases of American goods. But that entire system depended on one critical factor: the credibility of those tariff threats. And once that credibility was removed, the agreements themselves started losing their value. Now watch what happens next. India, which was expected to finalize its own agreement, has now paused. Officials made it clear they are waiting for a clearer and more stable tariff framework. One statement captured the shift perfectly. Any nation enters into an agreement only when it perceives a market advantage relative to other competing nations. That advantage has now disappeared. Meanwhile, the European Union has also slowed its process. Bernd Lange put it bluntly: a key instrument used on the U.S. side to negotiate and implement deals is no longer available. The situation is now more uncertain than ever. When multiple major economies pause, delay, or reconsider agreements at the same time, it's rarely a coincidence. It signals a broader reassessment, a moment where countries step back and ask whether the terms still make sense. So what happens next? One possibility is that more countries quietly follow Malaysia, not in dramatic announcements, but through slow, calculated exits. Another scenario involves a shift toward targeted pressure. Instead of broad tariffs, specific industries could be singled out, but that approach takes time. It requires investigations, evidence, and often faces legal challenges. The era of sweeping, immediate tariff threats may be over, at least for now. And then there's the clock. The current tariff structure comes with a strict time limit unless extended. That decision could land at a politically sensitive moment, forcing lawmakers to publicly take a position, which introduces another layer of uncertainty. Because trade policy doesn't exist in isolation, it intersects with politics, public opinion, and economic pressure at home. And beyond the United States, the global picture continues to evolve. Trade, energy, and geopolitics are deeply connected. When one part shifts, others tend to follow. In a system this interconnected, even a single country's decision can send signals far beyond its borders. Malaysia may not be the largest economy involved, but it may have done something more important. It tested the system. And for now, the response has been limited. That's something every other country is paying close attention to. Because if there are no real consequences, the calculation changes. What once looked like a firm structure begins to look more flexible, and once that perception spreads, it becomes difficult to contain. For now, the situation remains fluid. Countries are watching, reassessing, and waiting, not just to see what the United States does next, but to understand what this moment means for the future of global trade itself. So here's the question to watch. Will Indonesia follow? Will Vietnam? If they do, we aren't just looking at a trade dispute anymore. We are looking at the end of an era, because sometimes the most significant shifts don't happen through loud announcements. They begin quietly, with one decision that others choose to follow. Because once one country dares to break the rules, the whole system could be rewritten.